Good afternoon, Nigeria. Good afternoon, Lagos. This is Pulse, and you are watching Pulse live coverage of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. Winter is here as Nigerians round the country gathered in various polling units to cast their vote for who will be Nigeria's next president. With us here is Nuruddin Shotayo and myself, who went out yesterday in the streets of Lagos to monitor various polling units. Hello, Nuruddin.
Hello, Imar.
So basically, we'll be discussing with everyone today what we observed yesterday when we went out on the field to monitor the polling units. Yeah. And there were a couple of places we went to. Actually, let me first give you the chance to say hi to the audience. Say hi to the audience, please.
Okay. Hello, viewers. My name is Nuruddin Shotayo, and yeah, we are here to give you an analysis or a report of what we observed on the field yesterday as we went around various polling units in Lagos State to monitor proceedings. Yeah, basically. So the first place I went to, we gathered here in the office in the morning, and then we went in two different teams. First place I went to was Allstars. We went to witness the actual polling unit where the APC presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was going to cast his vote. And interesting.
Yeah, it was actually very interesting because when we went there first, we were a little late. We went there, elections were slated to start for 8:30. Am I right?
Yeah.
But we got there by about 9 something, and then the Inec officials, the electoral materials were not even on ground yet. Yeah. And I got to realize that was a lot of things. That was something that happened in many polling units.
It was a general issue yesterday in many polling units, especially in Lagos State, because in one of the polling units that I also monitored yesterday, an Inec official told me that they had transportation hiccups, and that's why they couldn't get to their polling unit. There was a particular polling unit that Inec officials arrived at around 11 a.m. So like you said, it's a general problem that we observed.
Yeah. It was a recurring problem, and for me, that was my first time covering elections as a reporter.
Me too.
I was so taken aback. You know how us reporters, we can get a little very ethical, like what things not on time, what things not done perfectly.
Yeah.
So I got there, and it was a rude awakening for me that the people who are there to conduct the elections were not there. And also the APC candidate had not arrived, although we had a lot of people come through, security patrol vehicles, making sure that everything was orderly. The electorates were calm, arriving. I wouldn't say it's a highbrow area, but it's an area where most of the electorates that I observed there, are learned people, and they seemed enlightened enough and exposed enough to know what exactly they were doing. However, I also came in touch with a couple of people who were shocked that they were wondering, why are they so, and how polling units are, they are so small, and they could be a lot on a particular street. So one electorate said, I'm sorry, I don't understand why there's so much media in this my own polling unit. Why?
Oh, the person probably didn't realize that is where the APC candidate was going to cast his vote.
She did not know. So when I told her, she said she did not sign up for this amount of media or this amount of stress. So she was telling me, I hope it's not going to be stressful. If so, I'll just go back home and say, I can't don't know what to say
predict what's going to happen,
I don't.
I can't help it.
And very soon we are going to see a video of when Tinubu arrived. When Tinubu arrived, it was a whole, the place became a little chaotic, but not violent. It was so many people hyping. It felt like the coming of Jesus to Jerusalem. There were people hyping, there were brooms everywhere, cameras. It was a multitude that he came with to the polling unit, and they cast their vote. And when they cast their votes, the polling unit became empty again. So the other people were then now able to do their process. But I don't know if our video from the Tinubu unit is on, so we can now put that up.
While we wait for the video, one thing you just said now is when Tinubu came in, he came with a retinue of supporters and security operatives as well. So that is expected of a former governor. He was a two-time governor in Lagos State, and of course a presidential candidate. So you wouldn't have expected anything less. It would need all the maximum security.
Peter Obi is what?
Of course.
Atiku was what? Former vice president.
I just mentioned it now, right? You can't compare. No, I don't want to start doing that. I don't want to. No. I don't want you to layer me into that comparison. No, we're not doing that. It's not
the comparison. It's that I just feel like that's not a potent reason why there should be that much crowd. But I don't even judge it. I don't think it's a bad thing. I feel like a better reason for me to explain that crowd is more of celebration and loyalty in terms of like, okay, a lot of people, yes, people have their whoever they are supporting, but people don't really understand what loyalty and support means. So I feel like, minus the fact that he was a governor, I don't know what really impact he has on people on a personal level, but I would say that it felt more like a push, a crowd of loyalty than just a crowd of, oh, I was a governor before or presidential candidate. What do you think about that?
Well, fair enough. Another thing that we also need to realize is that when a big personality like that, you know, is coming into town, I mean, to his polling unit, you need to make an announcement, right? Just to be sure that you are on ground. You know, all the things that happened pre-election about, you know, him not being on ground in Lagos and the possibility of another political party, you know, usurping APC in Lagos State. So if you are coming to your polling unit, I mean, we also witnessed it during APC's grand finale rally in Lagos State, when they had to pull all the stops to make sure that they fill the streets with all the supporters, you know, fill the Teslim Balogun Stadium. So it's about making an announcement just to dominate your territory and make people, you know, believe or realize that you are actually on ground.
So do you actually think that what you just explained, that dominating, that coming in with the, you know, the hype and the morale, do you think that would be enough to change maybe another electorate that went there to vote someone else?
No, not really.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think they'll feel intimidated and be like, you know what?
No, they don't feel. So for someone that, for that voter that didn't even realize that Tinubu was going to vote at his polling units, I mean, him coming there would not, you know, change his. Of course, it might. Maybe, you know, there's this thing where you meet someone, you have a perception about somebody from afar, somebody you've not related with one-on-one, and then you are able to, you know, relate with them up close, and then you kind of like have a different opinion about that person. So maybe that could have happened on the election day, who knows, but it's not, you know, there's no enough reason to say, oh, this could have swayed one or two voters at the polling units.
All right, so I guess our Tinubu video is ready, so can we put it up? The presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he is currently arriving the Allstars polling unit, the polling unit where he is expected to cast his vote. And as you can see, people are running, people are scrambling, there's a lot of confusion, people are going, the media is also running to, you know, go get a feed of him before the entire crowd. We can see brooms already going up, we can see, you know, a lot of supporters backing him up, and we are also going to go in there and then get into it and see what's up. So follow me as we witness this. So let's keep going. Still reporting live at Allstars polling unit, where Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the APC presidential candidate, has just cast his vote and has spoken to the media people. And as you can see, supporters are hailing him as his convoy drives off. It was chaotic, but the Inec officials were able to maintain calm to make sure that even after the presidential candidate was done casting his vote with his wife, that the rest of the voters or the rest of the electorate gets the opportunity to calmly cast their votes. So right now, the noise and all the chaos is moving away now from the polling units. The polling unit is back to its calmness. Calmness has been restored there. Orderliness has been restored there as electorates line up to cast their votes. Till then, this is Pulse.
actually carrying about the field yesterday. That was quite interesting.
I know it was. You see, that Tinubu's arrival, I keep telling everybody, it's the highlight of my yesterday. It just felt like so much. There was a lot of crowd. There was a lot of it was chaos because that place was literally calm. Then 2 minutes later, there was so much going on. The tent where Tinubu and his wife cast their votes was almost pushed down by crowd, by media, because also he's the APC presidential candidate, and obviously who he is. He's probably one of the most popular of the candidates, of the top 3 candidates. And it just felt like it was a lot going on. And I did feel there was something I observed, which I'd still like to bring to light. Of all the people that followed Tinubu and his wife to this polling unit to cast their vote, only Tinubu and his wife and just maybe 3 other people in that crowd cast their vote. After all the crowd.
All the crowd, everybody went
so
to
I actually stopped somebody and I had to ask him because I was quite confused. I just saw him, I saw the guy when he came. I now saw him turning around to leave. I said, but you've not cast your vote. Why are you going? He now said, this is not his polling unit, that he just came here to show support. I was like, okay, so you are going to go to your polling unit from here. He now said, no, that there's no movement. So he can't reach his polling unit. And I was like,
so he's sacrificing his vote just to make sure that he gets to meet is, I don't know whether it's his candidate, but to meet Tinubu.
I guess so. I guess that's valid enough. So let's move on to one of the places that you covered. I think you covered Okota.
Yeah, we were in Okota yesterday.
Tell us about Okota.
Interesting things happened in Okota yesterday. We went to, so when we got to Okota, first of all, I mean, there are a lot of security presence on the road. I mean, driving from our office right here in Mende to Okota, we met about 4 or 5 military checkpoints, and they kept asking us, where are you guys? And then we'll introduce ourselves, and then they will allow us to go. So I must commend the Nigerian soldiers, the guys that were deployed to man the roads yesterday. They were very friendly, they were very professional in their job. So when we got to Okota, we went to Okota because Okota has the history of Okota is prone to violence on election day. You know, you have thugs. In previous elections, we've had thugs coming to polling units there to disrupt votes. So we sort of concentrated on Okota yesterday. So when we got there, we got to this street, Iladada Street. There's one polling unit. On that street alone, you have 4 polling units, right? There's a particular one polling unit 012, and then you have another one polling unit 013. I can't remember the unit number for the other 2, but you know, those 2 I mentioned, you know, had some interesting developments. At 013, Inec officials, we got there around 9 o'clock, so we met Inec officials on ground, but they brought all their materials, everything was there, but unfortunately, they didn't bring their ink pad. So I think the INEC, the senior INEC official coordinating the POs in that area had taken with him the ink pad.
But let me even start. How did they come early? When you went there with the INEC?
So I wouldn't know where they got there.
Okay.
Right? But when we got there around 9 o'clock-ish, they were on ground. But then again, at polling unit 013, they were there, but polling unit 012, they were not there. And the distance between the 2 polling units was just like 100 meters, distance. So they were not there. So a lot of people who were supposed to vote at polling unit 013 were already queuing up at 013 because they thought they were not going to show up at all, and they will be able to cast their vote in that other polling unit. But eventually, they also came later. I think 30 minutes after we got there, the other guys, the INEC officials arrived at the other polling unit. So this polling unit 013, people were getting agitated. You know, people started suspecting foul play. That why would INEC come to their polling unit without bringing ink pad? So the INEC officials had to call their team lead in that area, and the guy drove down. So when the guy arrived there, I hope our producer can key in the videos right now so that we can see how the people in that community, I mean the voters in that registration point, you know, prevented the INEC official from leaving the scene. They insisted that he must provide the ink for voting to commence. Otherwise, they won't allow him, you know, to continue monitoring other polling units. So there was some kind of drama because people are getting agitated. Things are, you know, eating up. Is the video ready now?
I think the video should be ready.
Okay, let's key in the video so that No need, no need, no need.
This is not live.
I know.
So basically, now, after seeing that wildness, I want to know, how was that security situation like? Because they seem pretty rowdy. How was that handled?
So eventually, the Inec official was able to provide the ink because he had to. So apparently, his story is that he left the ink in one of the polling units that he had been to yesterday. So he didn't know which one it was. So he figured it out and was able to provide the ink. And unfortunately, we couldn't capture that moment that the ink was found, was eventually brought to the polling unit because there was wild jubilation. It was as if somebody just won an election in a particular polling unit.
People were pretty dramatic yesterday. People were actually very
saw
dramatic.
a lot of drama yesterday, you know. But one thing that actually impressed me in that particular polling unit was the first person that cast his vote. Our vote at that polling unit was a nursing mother. She brought a baby, maybe a 1 or 6. I can't guess the age, but it's very, young baby. And she had a baby. She was holding a baby in one hand and trying to cast a ballot in another with her right hand. So I was so impressed because this shows how determined Nigerians were to be part of the election this time around. And also at that particular point, I witnessed where aged people, senior citizens were prioritized. They provided them with a special, sitting arrangement, and they put them in the front, so that they will be the first set of people to cast their vote. So nursing mothers were prioritized, then the aged one were allowed to cast their vote before the rest of the voters. So I think this was an impressive, organization that I
How do you
witnessed yesterday.
think the electorate themselves conducted themselves? Because I went to certain places that electorates were quite timid. Certain places, it just seemed like they were tensed. So in Okota, how did electorates conduct themselves there? Like, were they tensed, or were they some people, especially back at Allstars, there was an old man that says even if these people want to come by 10 p.m. that he will be sitting down there. That dedication.
So I saw a lot of that yesterday. So to your question now, there are a lot of different reasons for that. If you go to a particular polling unit, I think the conduct of the voters in that particular polling. So let me take it from this angle. Polling units are, by their very nature, are located very close to where the voter resides. So you can then guess the nature of the area that a polling unit is located. Okota is one of those areas that you usually don't have. You can profile the kind of people that live there, and it's also, as it's dynamic as you move from one street to the other. So for this Iladada that we went to, you could observe that the voters are, calm type, but because at that point where we got there, they were kind of upset, right? And the fact that they sensed the danger that they might not be able to cast their votes, even though, according to some of them that I spoke to, they came up very early as 6 a.m. People were already out on the queue. So, I mean, if you find yourself in such a situation, your mood will change. I mean, the way you conduct yourself is changing. But generally, you know that they are peaceful, people that just want to cast their vote. And then at polling unit 12, because when we went back later in the evening, around 6 o'clock, voting was still ongoing. By the way, polling unit 013 had over 1,000 registered voters in that polling unit alone, while the other one had over 500. So it's quite a densely populated street in terms of voters. So the other polling unit 012, around 6 p.m. in the evening, the voting was still ongoing, and the process was slow because Inec only brought one BVAS machine for over 600 or so voters, and the verification process was kind of slow. But people were still determined to vote. But the voters that we interviewed there said, even though the process is frustrating, and it seems like it's taking forever for INEC officials to figure it out, but that's not going to deter them from casting their votes. Even if they have to stay there overnight, they will ensure that they are not leaving that polling unit until they cast their votes. So that's another level of commitment that I witnessed yesterday in one of the polling units that we went to.
All right.
But let me quickly also, add this to it. So because there's another polling unit that we went to in Okota. You're talking about how people condemn themselves, and I was so shocked. It's actually an estate. We just wandered into one street, and then we met. I think we spotted them from the main road, and we discovered that these people, they have all the white chairs well arranged. Not a populated polling unit like that, but everything was just arranged. People were just sitting down calmly, casting their votes. And we said, let's check these people out, because their own type of organization is quite different from what we've seen before. And then we went there, we talked to one or two people there. We don't have those videos on queue now. We can't take them. So, and the guy made me realize that the estate, it's actually an estate. And the Estates Association sort of had a meeting, and they made arrangement for drinks and all that. So they provided water, refreshment, basically, not for INEC officials though.
For the electorate.
For the electorate.
I saw something like that in VGC as well.
Yeah.
I saw that online. VGC obviously they did it extra. Like it was a whole barbecue thing.
They went an extra mile.
VGC, that is family. That's family estates, basically. Like they all feel it's like community, basically. And the polling unit in there, the pictures and videos I saw online, we had like many families having their own barbecue thingy outside, but then it's not for only their family, for everybody in the estate.
Exactly. So there's some areas you would go to yesterday, and it feels like carnival.
It felt like carnival. It actually did. It actually did. And a lot of free things. So if you were hungry in your house, if you don't have food in your house, and you went to vote. If you had your PVC and you did not have food in your house, you'd have most likely found food yesterday.
Of course.
Anyways, let's move. Also, speaking about like the conduct of the electorate, I want to also move into Mendy for a little bit. Actually, before we get into Mendy, let's talk about the INEC officials, because there were certain sloppy mistakes that you had identified that they made. For instance, forgetting one thing, the other thing. What do you really like? What's your comment on these things? Do you think that these things are human factors that we just have to tolerate, that okay, no human is perfect, so in these situations, certain glitches, certain forgetfulness, certain carelessness would happen? And should we just accept that that is just it and then move on with it? Or should we still hold INEC to higher standards? Because you can't be forgetting basic things. You can't be coming late. You can't be doing these things that can be easily avoided. So what's your take on that?
Well, you are right. INEC are expected to, be on top of their game for this kind of exercise, right? And the kind of sloppiness that you just identified right now are not, something that we should welcome in our electoral process. But unfortunately, for someone like me, even though yesterday was the first time I'll be covering the elections as a journalist, right? I've been part of the electoral process before. I've voted, and I've also kind of monitored, elections in the past. You will know that these logistical glitches usually occurs, on election day, right? But they are not something that they are not things that usually would lead to disruption of the process. It could cause some kind of delays, late arrivals. And like I said, there was an INEC official I spoke to yesterday that said, we had transportation issues at a particular polling unit, Babaiwe polling unit, also in Okota. That polling unit had over 2,000 registered voters. And when we got there around 11 a.m. was about the same time the INEC officials were just arriving at that polling unit. You need to see the crowd, the people that were waiting, to cast their vote. And, I approached the INEC official and I asked her why they didn't come on time. And she said they had issues with transportation. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the back and forth that we had before the election. some people took Inec to court not to use the services of the Lagos State Parks and Management. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But, sometimes, you are going to a particular area. Usually, the Inec officials, they might not be familiar with that particular vicinity. And the driver might find it difficult to locate particular polling unit. So you can be in a street, in an area, and you are looking for polling unit 010, and you discover that you've actually gone to polling unit 001, or some kind of mix-up could happen, and then you still have to, try and relocate your polling unit. So these are the kind of things that happen on election day, and the way INEC moves, at least from what I've known before this election and from what I witnessed yesterday, it is usually in a bus, you can have polling unit officers for like 2 or 3 different polling units moving in the bus. So by the time you drop one here, you are moving to another. So you can't drop, INEC officials cannot arrive at their polling units at the same time simultaneously on election day. So that is practically impossible. So all these issues are expected. And the issue of, leaving your ink pad somewhere, there are things that could come up. I would be concerned if INEC had not made provision for that ink pad, because I was particularly interested in that incident. I wanted to know what happened. Is it that INEC didn't make provision for ink pad for that particular polling unit, so somebody had just misplaced it, and it turned out to be that the latter was the case, and the ink pad was able to be found at the end of the day. So those kind of things would happen. I mean, this is an election that is taking place in 176,000 polling units. So from what I witnessed, I can't say there was a deliberate attempt to truncate the process or to sort of manipulate the process in favor of one person or the other. But there are just things that would come up if you are handling a very complex exercise like we had yesterday.
That, to be honest. And it's not just only complex, it's also very sensitive.
Exactly.
Because the atmosphere, people just want their votes to matter. They don't want a situation where they come out. Already, the stress towards getting PVC is motivation enough. Yeah. So for me, I don't understand people that went through that PVC stress and did not come out yesterday. To vote. I don't really understand.
I don't think there was. Well, I wouldn't know, but there might be, different reasons for people not to come out to vote. Although we still have to wait for INEC's, we still have to wait for INEC's report after this election to determine the number of voters. I mean, the percentage of turnout for this particular election. But from what I can see yesterday and from the results that we've been seeing, I'm not really impressed. Considering the level of awareness, the level of enthusiasm that went into all the campaigns and all of that. So I felt like I would see more people coming out to cast their votes, but that didn't happen for me according to what I've seen so far. But I'm not judging, but I'm just talking based on what I observed, right? So that has not really happened. So I wouldn't know why after all the pre-election hassle, and then someone
all the hassle.
Yes, so sometimes Nigerians are funny. Some people still don't believe in the electoral process to start with. So some people just need that PVC to use as a form of identification.
Or even bragging right, just to post
or even bragging right that I have PVC and all that. So, yeah.
Anyways, let's move forward. So I also learned that you visited a polling unit at Doen in Lekki. Doen College in Lekki?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you experienced in Doen was like. How was, because we also know that is relatively highbrow area. We expect there to be peaceful. We expect maybe few electorates or not so many, because that Doen, the road that Doen is on itself is not necessarily residential. Yeah, but absolutely. Like I'm sure people still would pull to that unit or pull in that unit. So what was the turnout like at Doen?
So at Doen, there was a particular polling unit at Doen that INEC officials didn't even turn up at all. We went there we were on our way to Ikate to observe what's happening. We get to Ikate later on, right? So we were on our way to Ikate, and then we stopped at Doen and discovered that we noticed a polling unit that a lot of people were just sitting down, and we noticed that there was no presence of INEC officials. So we stopped our car and said, oh, let's observe what's going on here. And we discovered that, oh, it was actually Dowen that had been trending online before we went there. So we approached the voters. We asked them what's going on. This was around past 2 in the afternoon. And then one of the people we interviewed there, I hope the producer can cue in the video now, actually told us that polling unit alone had, I think, over 200 or 300, if I'm correct, voters. And from the turnout that I could see at that particular time, because the guy was telling us that some people had left, but you could see that the people that were still waiting at that particular point in time were still over 100 people. And like you mentioned, it's an eyebrow area, right? And it's not particularly a residential area. And for you to still have that kind of, turnout, it was very impressive. And it was disappointing on the other hand because INEC officials were not on ground.
Till the end of the day?
We went to Ikate, and on our way back, we decided to still check what was going on there. And that was around 3:30 to 4. There was still no INEC officials. So I don't know, before we came on air, I think someone was, telling me that INEC had, maybe an election would take place in that particular polling unit today. I don't know. This is not an information that I can bank on. Yeah. But as far as I know, yesterday, that particular polling unit, as at the time we went there, past 2, and then we checked again around 4 o'clock, there was no INEC present.
No,
there.
Let's check out the video. I'm sure the video team should have cued the video by now. So let's have it.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Kola. I'm a registered voter here.
What polling unit is
this? This is 071. Lekki environment. Dowen collect 071.
071. This is 4:02 p.m.
Okay.
And
2:04.
Sorry, 2:04 p.m. Sorry.
Yes. Most of us here have been here since like 8 o'clock. I trekked here in the morning just to exercise my civil rights. Until now, as I'm talking to you, I've not voted. In fact, we've not seen any INEC official here today.
Have you been able to talk to any INEC official over the phone?
We've spoken to so many people. In fact, there were so many people, election monitoring that came from Abuja. Okay. And we spoke with them. We told them that we've not been able to vote here. And immediately they said they are calling people that we should expect INEC here very soon. And we've not seen anybody. They are calling people that we should expect INEC here very soon.
Yeah.
That's a rather sad situation. I do hope that gets to be sorted out, because I really believe that for patriotic citizens like that to even take the stress to come out of their houses or even get your PVC, then come out of your house to vote, and then the only thing between you and casting your vote is the presence of the people who should be there to moderate it. So I feel like that must really be attended to. Yeah. How about the conduct of the electorate that you saw in? You said you left Dowen.
So let me quickly add this to it. So we left Dowen. We left Dowen, right, in Lekki, because we were driving through Lekki on our way to Ikate, and then we observed that even though there were no INEC officials at that particular polling unit that we just watched the video now, that the polling units, the polling points in close by had INEC officials, but you would realize that most of those polling units that had INEC officials, there were no, or maybe when we got there, people had voted and left. But you could see signs, because in most polling units, people voted and waited for counting and sorting, all that to happen. But those other polling units that we observed around Dowen had INEC officials, but there were not in a lot of people out there to cast their vote. So I was just looking like, so why is it that it is a polling unit that is populated in a way that had this kind of issue, and then again, I don't want to start sowing any conspiracy theory, but that's just what I observed yesterday.
All right. Speaking, you said something about a lot of them waiting there to, the other polling units, people waiting to count the votes alongside the INEC officials. And I also tended to have observed that a lot in many polling units. So I went to Bagada at some point yesterday, and when we went there, we saw, a polling unit, they had just finished. That was the first polling unit we saw that they had finished voting elections, and it was still bright, it was still a little early. So we're like, you know what, let's see how the counting...
Oh, did you capture that on camera?
we did capture it on camera, but before I get there, we're like, let's see how the counting process goes, because there were two quite close to themselves and it was an estate. So we went there, speaking on the electorate, I started talking to a few of them, because first we came out in our media t-shirts and ID card, and some of them first thought we were other Inec officials, so they were already like a bit excited, more people have come. And I said, no, we're media, we're actually here to just help you monitor the process and everything. And then they were quite able and willing to speak with us. But one thing that really interested me was how they were so determined. There were people who cast their vote in the morning, like 9 a.m. And they said, you know what, we'll wait here. They said election finished by 2:30. Even if we're going to finish it by 5, by 10, we will stay here and we're going to watch them count the votes and upload it, just to be sure that there is no mago done in between it.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think I have a video of people counting alongside the Inec officials in Bagada. So please, media, can you cue that for us?
Help me! It's funny. Help me! Help me! Help me!
Yes.
There we have it. For this polling unit, it has been announced that the Labour Party wins the presidential election on this polling unit with 67 votes, while the APC had 39 votes, and the PDP had what? 4 votes. Bagada has spoken, guys. This is Pulse. It was amazing. Like, it's like, 1, 2. It was a whole chorus, and I saw that there, and it was live. And I'm not even going to lie, there was a goosebump feeling about them counting the votes with them. Then I go online and I realized that that's a trend actually. Almost I think all of them have a group chat. That, you know what? When they are counting, we'll count with them.
Yeah, that's what I also got yesterday. When we went to Greenfield Estate, still around Okota, we went there in the afternoon, and we met a lot of people excited. I mean, interesting thing, right? At Greenfield Estate, I was told that there were 3 polling units in that estate alone, and it's a very highly populated estate. They said they had over 5,000 registered voters, just 3 polling points. But the first one that we got to, I think polling unit 018, we interviewed someone there. I hope the producer can cue in the video right now. So the person told us that he flew in from Philippines. It happens to be a skitmaker, sort of, someone very popular within the estate. And they said he had to travel all the way down from the Philippines just for the election. I will be leaving once the elections are over. And he was just excited because he was a first-time voter, right? This was his first time of voting.
How many first-time voters did you actually see?
Almost everybody I interviewed yesterday were first-time voters.
Because the first-time voters that I saw, in trying to interview them, all of them were just very afraid. She said, I don't want to be on TV.
Oh, really?
I'm afraid. I don't want to be on TV. It's my first time. Let my face not show. And I say, you know what? I understand it. But some of them were able to talk to me. Like there's a lady, she said she's not a first-time voter, but she was a first-time voter a couple of years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, when she came back into Nigeria from another country to cast her vote. And she said since then she has remained. And that this is her second time being able to be here and cast her vote. But I don't think we have a video cued in for that. But like, I felt very excited to actually speak to her, because she said that from her point of view is like she wasn't even this motivated last time she came into Nigeria. She flew in, and she said she wasn't even this motivated. So how much more now? So she's like, she's just so motivated, blah 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 blah. She doesn't mind staying here till midnight to cast her vote, and also to make sure that it's counted and uploaded, blah blah blah. And I feel like a lot of first-time voters also nursed a lot of fears. There were a lot of them too that were not sure how to pull up to the ground, like how to look, because I saw a lot of for lack of better words, posh kids, trying to disguise. When you try to disguise, but you don't do it. You don't do it well. It didn't work. So I saw a lot of that happening, and I also know that is coming from a lot of sensitization. Pre-election said, dress comfortable, dress down, dress comfortable, dress down, just in case of anything, flights, frights, whatever. And I saw a lot of that play out with the first-time voters. So first-time voters were it's like they went through all Pulse's blog posts to make sure that they know exactly how to pull up and what to expect. Wow. So your first-time voters, how do you think their conduct was?
actually, all the first-time voters. Okay, most of the first-time voters I interviewed them after they had cast their vote. So I think that experience is quite different from them. So they had already gone through the process, and a lot of them were excited. So there were some of them that attained the voting age before before the previous election, but they didn't participate in the election. But so this was their first time of casting votes in an election, and they were just excited to do it. So I think what I noticed is that when something becomes a trend and everybody just wants to join the trend, that is what this election is telling me, that because there've been a lot of conversations around it online, and people just want to go out and vote just to make sure that they join the trend. Yeah. So that's kind of feeling I got yesterday.
Post this picture.
I also saw a bit of that yesterday. People posting picture and displaying their index finger. So that's that. I don't know if we can have the video from Parkview Estate where we interviewed the person that said he came in from the Philippines. Is it ready?
I don't think the video will be ready.
You need no introduction, right?
My name is Adiramu, aka Joseph Ololo. Already number one.
All right, thank you very much. We can see the excitement on your face. It's very palpable.
Yeah, so
since you can't wait to cast your vote, have you voted?
No, I will never. We've been waiting for a long time. Although finally they came. You understand? We must vote today. It's our right. It's my right. It's your right also. Yes. No. We must vote. You understand? And I'm voting for P2. I don't know about you. I don't know about others. You understand? We came to cast our vote and we must vote. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
We're standing on top of sun. Sun cannot prevail. The rain cannot prevail. I have to vote.
All right. I was made to understand that you actually came into the country just to make sure that you are part of this electoral process.
Yes, Philippines. I fluted from Philippines.
Just for one vote.
Just for one vote. So I fluted. So after I fluted, before the judge I'll flute out. You understand? That's it.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes.
We are really happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you people too.
All right, let's quickly go to our other celebrity now.
You don't need to tell me what to say because I'm
Ikate. Ikate.
My experience has been really a mixed bag. I'm happy that we're seeing a lot of first-time voters here. People are really fed up with the country. But earlier in the day, we were attacked by a bunch of thugs. They destroyed 3 polling units. 2 are back up, but 1's gone. They did 4 or 5 polling units. There are a lot of polling units. I was attacked, punched, beaten, persecuted for trying to vote. But I'm happy a lot of people are here. I saw a guy, they broke a chair on his head. I saw them break a chair on his head and literally mob him. He's back there now voting. So, that
shows how determined Nigerians are.
Yeah, that shows how tenacious we are about this. So, I'm just grateful, man. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
All right, Jory. Thank you very much. 5, 4, 3. That was a sad one.
That was Ikate. Yes. Let's talk about Ikate, because I know that you're on your way to Ikate when you stopped by Doen, and coming back from Ikate, you passed by Doen. Yeah. So Ikate really shocked me yesterday. Ikate's unrest, first of all, we first started by saying Fowles giving us his update with his phone. Next thing I see Ikate trending, and I'm hearing that thugs had, carted away with stuff. Thugs had stolen Fowles' phone, and a couple of other things that happened. So what really happened? I've seen the video with Joey. Can you explain really what happened to Joey?
Yeah, Joey is one of the voters that were harassed yesterday.
Joey Akan, he's a media personality.
Yeah, he's a media personality, formerly of Pulse, of course. He's one of our own. I got there. He's one of the people that I hoped I'll be able to interview when I got to Ikate yesterday. And luckily enough, he just walked into my shot as I was recording. So we interviewed him, and he told us about his experience. He was harassed, just because he wanted to cast his vote and all that. And he also talked about someone that I think they broke chair on his head. and the person, had to go and treat himself, and he came back to the polling unit just to make sure that he cast his vote. So even though thugs tried to harass people yesterday at Ikate, when we got there, everything had, normalcy had been restored. We saw a lot of, security presence, like 3 or 4 police vans, military vans, and
so that means that election took place.
Election took place, of course, because it's very close to the Allstars Palace, the King's Palace. Because I also, went into the compound of the King's Palace. There were 2 polling units, 2 polling points inside the compound. Things were going smoothly. We also saw other journalists on ground, and outside the compound on the street, itself, there are other 3 or 4 polling units that we saw, and normalcy had been restored. But one thing that actually, surprised me was when we got there and we were trying to figure out which the actual polling unit where Fowles was harassed, and people were, they were not cooperating, they were afraid. So it's as if they were scared of the talks. You don't know who is who. Yeah. So when we introduce ourselves and say we are from Pulse, we are journalists, I don't want to talk to, I don't want any interview. So I'm not interviewing, I'm not putting you on record, I'm not going to quote you. I just want you to point me to which of these polling units, And they said, no. You said you are not going to interview me, and now you are asking me questions.
It's quite funny because you see different electorates reacting differently to certain things. There's another electorate that you had mentioned earlier that they are the ones that came to beg you and say, come and help us, come and help us. Some people are saying, I beg go. So I guess those are the.
So I didn't add this when I mentioned that. The guy that said, come and help us, apparently had seen some of our videos, some of my reports that we uploaded on Instagram. Yeah. So when he came to us, he just said, "Oh, please pause. I've been seeing your videos. I've been seeing your videos. There's something else." So it's very interesting,
But for you, how was that, like being able to be out there in the field and doing all these things?
So that particular point when that guy came to me, I just, it just dawned on me again how powerful the power of the media is, how influential the media is. And the guy saw us online, he saw some of our updates, and he saw me in those updates, and then was able to identify me when I got to that area, right? That was why he was able to come and to say, oh, we should come to their rescue and all of that. So that's one of the good things, one of many good things that the media does in society.
All right, guys, at this point, it will be important that I bring it to your notice that the coalition of results has started. So we will be keeping our eyes on that, and also we may be wrapping up here soon so that we can also properly monitor that.
I think the correct information is that collation will start by 6 p.m.
Oh, I had gotten information that he had started, so maybe
we'll wait for further confirmation of that. So we are just trying to.
Okay, it has been postponed. That's the right information.
Earlier scheduled for 12 p.m.
It has been postponed to 6 p.m.
Yeah,
it has been postponed to 6 p.m. So for those who are waiting on it, for
just stay glued to Pulse.
Stay glued to Pulse. We got you. We got you.
You can get all the information about the collation, everything right here.
Okay, so let's hit Mendy, because there were a lot of, apart from Ikate, there was also some issues of unrest in Surulere, although by the time I got to Surulere, it was already calm. There was a lot.
Yeah, sorry to butt in. I think that's another thing that I noticed yesterday. All those flashpoints where you had incidences of thuggery or disruption of voting process. Security, there was, fast security response. The response time
was fast. So we have to give it up for security.
We have to give it up to them.
There's something else that's popped in. Apart from the response rates of security, what about the electorate that decided? There were some places that had no security that I went to. And then the electorate themselves said that they are the structure. They said, we are the security structure. We are the security here. So I felt like a lot of electorates stepped into shoes of security, or even just not necessarily stepped into shoes, but just as citizens who really want the best or want the vote or want the process to go free and fair, they said, you know what, we are going to stand in the gap. And if it means us protecting, our votes. And I think I saw that Choma Okota, her polling unit, she had reported that, there were the people who came to overpower them, some thugs, but them, the electorates, were able to overpower the thugs and then drive them away so that they can have their elections.
That's quite interesting.
That is so dedicated. I said this 2023 election is giving dedication.
Everybody's bringing the energy. Actually, so what you said about security, the truth is, I don't think we have enough security personnel to man every polling unit as much as we would have loved to. So I think that is one of the reasons, and that's one of the reasons for the things that happened yesterday. But one thing I must commend the government for is that they were able to put a lot of, at least in Lagos where we observed, they were able to put a lot of military men on the main road, because soldiers were not meant to interact or interfere in the election process proper. So that's why in most polling units that you go, you would see police. You mostly see police officers, not soldiers. You find soldiers in the main road. It's only when there is some kind of, violence or anything like that, that will have the military come in to provide security for people. And those, those polling units that you noticed absence of security personnel is as a result of the nature of the area. So there's some area like the Parkview estate I went to. There was this unwritten agreement, among the residents that they were going to vote for a particular candidate. So you could see that there was no way nobody was going to cause any trouble.
Oh, fair.
So you
this is unwritten agreement. Our friends in that polling unit too.
So for that kind of for that example that you gave now, it could be as a result of that, because especially in estate areas, everybody knows everybody, and you know what the next person. You can predict the action of your neighbors, so there's really no issue around that. But there are some other areas that even the security operatives would have identified as flashpoints where crisis could break out anytime, and that's why you see concentration of police officers in one area, and you see less of that in other areas.
Okay, so we have a video of the absence of police. So I would have the team cue in that video so that the audience can see what that situation was.
Okay, and you're about to play is a PO2. What's your name, please? You can just tell me. Sonny. And that's if you want who's in charge of the.
Alright, so we observe that things have been very calm here. Everything is, there seems to be orderliness compared to other polling units that we've observed. And we also noticed that you don't have police officers assigned to you, or probably the ones that were assigned to you didn't come with you to this polling unit. What can you say to that?
Okay, yeah, this is what really happened. When we arrived to this place, we craved their indulgence. We apologized for the fact that we came late, and we pleaded with them that they should cooperate with us so that we can have a seamless electoral process. And they told us that they will cooperate with us. And that's what we have been enjoying. They've been so nobody's even causing any issues.
Alright. So what about the police officers that were not here?
Well, the police officers, actually, we were even talking about it that wow, they are not even here, and we are not even feeling them. Just
their
because
presence, right?
Yeah, they are present just because they cooperate with us. That's why we are. But we wish they are here, because when they are here, we are most
feel more secure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask, how are you going to get the votes to the next stage of collation, since you don't have security cover?
Oh, okay. The driver who brought us and our SPO is aware that we are here, and by the virtue of his responsibility, he is supposed to go around to check on us. So we expect that at the close of the election process, he will be here. Then we can even launch a call to him to be aware that we are through. Then they can come and pick us up.
What's the population of this polling unit?
Just 91. Just 91.
All right. An Inec official that I interviewed somewhere around Okota yesterday. I noticed that at the polling unit there was no presence of security personnel. No police officer, no one inside. But then again, they were just, the voters were just very well organized. They had a tent. they brought out chairs and people were sitting calmly. There was no trouble, even though there was no security presence. But I interviewed him and asked why, there was no police officer, and that's the explanation that he gave in the video. And I asked him because I was curious if anyone that wants to foment trouble realizes that there is no security protection for you guys, and you are meant to transfer the election from the results from that polling units to the next stage of collation, what would happen? How do you? And then he was able to explain to me that they will call the people that brought them there, and stuff like that.
So generally in Lagos, I think, like, apart from a lot of, you said something earlier that despite the fact that people will hear about unrest in certain areas, but by the time we reach those areas, like, the unrest is already handled by police and stuff like that. So I think, like, because there was a whole lot of citizen journalism that went on yesterday. People were reporting things just, as it was happening. And I feel like there's a gap, as much as I appreciate that paradigm shift, because the paradigm shifts not in terms of the election, but in terms of how the election was reported with the help of social media and other users, like, eyes were on everything and everywhere. But I feel like there was a bit of a lag in the balance of how things were reported. For instance, if you report that there was an unrest in Surulere, if that unrest is handled, maybe you should probably also update us that, that lag was the problem. So people all just thought, like, oh, Ikate is fire from morning till night. No, Ikate was fire for a few hours. Surulere was fire for a short time. So I feel like the security, their own work wasn't how the security acted, their response rate and their effectiveness is not as highlighted as it should be, because of how it is just so much citizen journalism of only the bad second that occurred. Unfortunately,
that's one of the characteristics of citizen journalism. Most of the times it's only the negative incidents that are amplified, and we all know that if you are a news person, you know that negative news trends more than positive news.
Sells fast.
And having security officials in a particular place, or a peaceful conduct of election in places, doesn't really make the news, because people view it as something that should be the norm, right? But if you have an incident like we had in Ikate, and Ikate was very peculiar because you had celebrities involved, involved, right? And there were a lot of eyeballs on that particular incident, because we were surprised when we got there. Everything was calm. So if they had told you that, if you were not online, you didn't hear about any incidents in Ikate, and you got there at the time we did, and someone told you, oh, this thing had happened here today, you wouldn't believe it, right? So like you said, this sort of, gave less commendation to the effort that security officials, pulled off yesterday, because people just talked about these happenings without giving us an update about. So that is even why we had to go there yesterday as pause, because we felt like we need to also give feedback to our audience as to what has transpired after the whole crisis. Has there been normalcy, or is the crisis still on? That was why we went there. So I'm taking that what's it called? That kudos on behalf of Pause right now, because we were able to feed our audience back that report.
Exactly. So for basically in other news, for balanced reports, you should probably check Pulse out.
Yes.
All right. So I want to highlight the fact that a lot of people, a lot of electorates could testify about the fact that there was peaceful elections for the most part in Lagos State. Went through to certain places. I spoke to electorates to talk to them, to know, okay, those of you, especially those of you that said you've been here since morning, monitoring everything that's happening, how has it gone? And a lot of them had, peace. They were preaching and giving me testimonies of peace and peace and peace. So I went to Mende, which is quite close to our vicinity here. I went to Mende and I saw a few women who had cast their votes, but they were on the side, waiting for the voting process to be done so that votes can be counted and uploaded. And I had a talk with them. So video, let's see the video actually. Good afternoon, everyone. And we are still in the polling unit at Mende. I want to speak to a few electorates who have their testimonies to say about this particular polling unit. So what do you have to say?
It's peaceful.
It's very peaceful here in Mende.
Very, very peaceful, as you can see. Yeah, it's very peaceful.
So these are the electorates speaking for themselves, and they are saying that right now elections in Mende is peaceful. There have been no instability, there has been no unrest, there has been no violence, right? And they're enjoying themselves. They look like very civilized electorates, just performing their civic duties. I'm happy for you guys. Yes, I was indeed happy for them. I was definitely happy for them. I told them that I'm happy for people because at the time where I was doing, when we approached them, I had just seen a lot of things happening in Ikate, and I think that was the time we were also trying to tell you if you could, go over there. And at that time, I was like, Ikate, I saw so really, there were a lot of things popping up. So that's why I started telling them, I'm happy for you because I really don't know what's going on.
Because the gas bills I was going on in other places.
I don't know what's going on in other places. Yeah. Anyways, let's round it up real quick. So I want us to talk about, places outside Lagos that were prominent in the news, things that happened, very distinct things. For instance, Bayelsa. Did you hear about what happened in Bayelsa?
Yeah, I heard the Inec chairman yesterday talking about elections, being postponed.
Yes, so the Bayelsa state, not the whole state, please. Yenogwa, about 141
polling units
in 4 wards in Yenogwa were postponed to today. And that is because there was protests erupted in Yenogwa, and Inec said, you know what, not today, tomorrow. Right. So I guess that's probably why, that might be why they are postponing the collation to like 6. You don't think so?
No, not really.
Oh well, when we go up, we'll figure out. We'll figure out why.
The collation thing, I'm not sure there's any state out of the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory that has been able to collate and transfer the results to Abuja. The collation officer for each state will do the collation. The collation will start from the ward level to the local government level, and then from local government level, they will take it to the state collation center.
Typically, how many days does this take?
No, it doesn't take days. By the end of today, right now, some states, would have completed the collation process, but they still have to travel with the results to Abuja. They have to take a flight to the collation center in Abuja because that's where the results will be announced.
So as someone that has been voting since 1960.
or even since amalgamation.
As someone that has been voting since amalgamation, please tell me from here, what next should any person who went out, for instance, the first-time voter who went out yesterday to vote, from here, what other processes are left before we hear the results?
Oh, well, it's just the collation is still ongoing as we speak. Some states, before we came online, some states have wrapped up collation and, have started seeing some results, even though it's the parties that were posting them. But what would happen basically is, like I said, from the polling units, that's where the first level of collation will start. So the Inec officials will collate the results and announce it there and upload it on the Inec website, where everyone can see what is happening from one ward to the other. But I don't think it's quite cumbersome for you to want to start totaling votes from the Inec. You can only view per polling unit, right? So Inec officials will take the vote from the polling unit to the ward collation center. So they will now collate all the polling units in that ward and record it for parties, right? Party A, Party B, Party C is called this total number of votes in this ward, right? So from that level, they will move to the local government collation level. So say you have 10 wards in a particular local government. So the local government collation chairman would have to wait for all the results from all the 10 wards to be collated. So once they have that, they will move to the state level. So for Lagos State now, that has 20 local governments. you know, this is a federal government arrangement. They are not using the 57 local governments, which consist of 20 local governments and 37 LCDA. Federal government recognizes 20 local governments for Lagos State, so they are collating at that level. So all the 20 local governments would have to be collated for Lagos State, and the collation officer for Lagos State would now tabulate the results and take the result to Abuja. So if Lagos State result is ready, for instance, and they get to Abuja, when collation starts at 6 p.m., so the Inec chairman would do the, you know, formal introduction and address some issues.
So my fear now, Bayelsa, would they be ready for 6?
So here's the thing. For Bayelsa, if the affected ward, not even a matter of if, because it's not only the presidential election that took place yesterday.
Yes, National
so I think
Assembly as well.
one of the main reasons why it's very important, it became important for election to be, you know, reconducted in that particular, in those wards in Bayelsa, was because there was also the House of Assembly, the House of Representatives election, and the Senate election taking place yesterday. So the affected wards, the votes in those 4 wards that were affected yesterday, 141 polling units in total, could affect the outcome of the House of Representatives and the Senate election, but may not even affect the outcome of the presidential election. Do you understand?
Yes,
now?
I do.
So if it was just the presidential election, it's something that they could have
just done it,
just, you know, overlooked. But because there are other elections embedded, so they have to just retake it. So I don't think it will affect final collation. But at the end of the day, they still have to get the final numbers in. But that shouldn't be a problem for Bayelsa. But it could be a factor that would delay them.
It might be late, yes.
A bit. So,
it might be late, but okay.
So let's say state has all their final results ready, so they'll get to Abuja, and then their next chairman will do the introduction, and there'll be a stage where you have the chairman or other Inec officials, and there'll be a separate space provided for the returning officer at each state level to come and announce the results. So the person will sit down, bring out his results sheet, start counting from party. You know we have 18 political parties, so you now say my name is so. I'm the returning officer for Lagos State. That's the part Nigerians like. And this is how Nigerians voted in Lagos. Number of voters were accredited. Total number of valid votes cast, valid vote, invalid votes. You read all that out, and then start going into how the parties share the vote. They'll start in alphabetical order that they have it on the ballot paper, start reading it out. So Party A in Lagos State had so number of votes, Party B, Party C, and they'll call all the 18 political parties. So the party with the highest number of votes, of course, wins the state. So, and then other states will also follow. So any state that has their results ready and they've arrived in Abuja will present.
I hope you guys have gotten like the clear scope of what next is to come, how the collation is going to like go on, and the process, and what to expect from that process. However, before we close, I'd like to also show us, or showcase to us, people without their PVCs who breached the INEC's guideline. INEC's guideline said those without PVCs should stay in their houses or else they'll be held. And yesterday, while we're out monitoring the elections, we noticed a few people being held by military officers, and we stopped by to talk to them. So please, cue in video. Currently, we're at Okota, and we're passing by the road, and we noticed some military men holding down a few citizens right here. And we wanted to find out what exactly was going on.
What happened is that we all know that there's election today, and everybody know that they announced that from 12 o'clock a.m. till 6 p.m. Everybody should not walk around. But what happened is that I'm living around here, and we have 2 houses, 1 year and 1 year. This is where I slept yesterday night, and I think that this morning I can be able to go to the second. That is where my PVC and NIN and everything is. That I can go there and pick it and went to vote. But as my way coming, I saw soldier and police. They told me that where I'm going, and I explained to them. They told me that where's my PVC. I told them that it's at home, that I want to go and take it and vote. And they said, yeah, I did not know my PVC, that I should come and sit down here.
Speaking to one of the people held here, he said he was found on the road without his PVC, although he was on his way to go pick up his PVC from someone else. However, Inec had already issued out guidelines. It has already been publicized that anybody who is seen without their PVC outside will be held. So this right here is the situation. It's quite unfortunate that someone had to be held in the process of him going to get his PVC, but I guess the law is the law. Keep watching Pulse.
Emma, you had some sympathies for those guys.
Did I? I didn't believe that story, Sha, but I wouldn't say I had sympathy. But I mean, his story, if it was true, it's not my place to determine whether it's true or not. If it was true, it's rather unfortunate. Although the law is really the law.
Really the law.
You heard yesterday, he himself, he said, we all know that there was election, so you knew.
So
that your PVC that you left somewhere else.
Yeah, that's not an excuse.
It's
really.
not an excuse. Anyways, so there you have it for this segment coverage of the live happenings of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. We will be back by
later in the evening.
We'll be back. We'll announce it. Please follow us on all our platforms, and we will be live like how we are right now, live on all our platforms, on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and even TikTok. So join us.
It can only be Pulse.
It cannot be Pulse. So join us for our next segment, which will be this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.